everybody, and welcome to the Chronic Hope Podcast, episode number 16. Today, on April 19th, we're going to talk about treatment and sobriety and post-pandemic reality with my good friend, Ashley Neal. Before we get to the amazing Ashley, we're going to talk about, do a little house cleaning. We're going to talk about the Chronic Hope Institute. The Chronic Hope Institute the mission of the Chronic Hope Institute was to support families that are struggling with addiction and codependency and offer education and support for mental health professionals about families, addiction, and codependency. You can follow us on Facebook. We have a Chronic Hope Institute Facebook group. We also have a Chronic Hope Institute podcast and a Chronic Hope on Apple and Spotify. And we also have a Chronic Hope Institute YouTube page. I mean, got so much social media, and we even have Instagram, we have Twitter, we have the whole thing. So, and you can buy the books. You can buy my book, Chronic Hope, Families and Addiction, on Amazon, Kindle, and Audible. You can also get the first book, Chronic Hope, Parenting the Addicted Child. Okay, enough shameless self-promotion. Let's get to the good stuff. Let's talk about my new pal, my new best friend, Ashley Neal. Hi, Ashley. How are you?
I'm good, Kevin. Good afternoon. How are you?
Good. It's good to see you. Thanks for joining us and sharing with us. That means a lot to me, you know. And you know, for those of you that are following along, Ashley and her business partner had me on their podcast a couple months ago, so I was really excited to return the favor. So
yeah.
What I wanted to do is that I got a couple of questions I want to start us off with, which I think will get the conversation rolling. And you know, I want you to answer them and just talk about you. And this is you know, an opportunity for you to talk about you, your program, your company, everything else. So how's that sound? Yeah?
Sounds awesome. I'm ready to go.
All right, great. So first things first, why did you get sober?
Great question. So I got sober kind of young. I was 25 years old when I got sober, and I had spent a good number of years using drugs and alcohol. Started when I was in college, and I was an only child growing up and to a single parent, and I never really wanted to be clean or be sober. But I also didn't want to injure my mom, like break her heart, essentially. And I had a lot of mental health stuff going on at the same time when I decided to get sober. And I kind of got to a point where I said, you know what, my mom's just going to have to deal with losing me because I was essentially suicidal. I came out of that fog and, you know, thankfully did not complete suicide. And decided that I needed to go to treatment and get some help. I knew that I needed help. I just really had never been willing, but that was a very scary experience of actually having a plan for suicide and not completing it, thank God. So I went to my mom and said, you know, I need to go to treatment. And the rest is history, really.
When was that?
2006.
Okay. When's your sobriety date?
It is April 4th, 2006. So I just celebrated 15 years in recovery. Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
That's
and the
amazing.
office that I'm sitting in, I now am an employee at Turning Point of Tampa. And that is actually where I went to treatment. So pretty cool, you know, coming full circle to be able to sit in the office as an employee of the place that saved my life.
Yeah, that's amazing. I'm going to ask you one more question about your family, and then I want to hear about your experience in treatment and then how you got into the business. Okay.
Okay.
What role did your mom or your family play in like before, during, and now? Like before treatment, during treatment, and then now? What role does your family play, or did your family play, and does your family play?
Right. So I kept my addiction hidden from my mom, really. I didn't live with her for the majority of the time that I was using drugs and alcohol. Like I said, I was in college and I lived on campus for a little while and then lived on my own. In my early 20s, I had purchased a home and was living in a different town than my mom. And I just kind of avoided her for the most part. So she didn't know what was going on with me. About 6 months before I went to treatment, I did go to her and say, look, I have a drug problem. I think she was very shocked and maybe not too surprised. My father also struggled with addiction, and they had been separated for several years. So she knew what it looked like, but again, I wasn't coming around her very often, so she didn't see it. When I told her that I had a problem, she was shocked, and I don't know that she really knew what to do. And at this time, I was living with her, but I would just not come home. I worked in the restaurant industry, and I was a manager of the restaurant, and most nights I would close the restaurant down. So I would always come home late anyway. So typically I would just wait until she left for work, and then I would come home. She left for work really early in the mornings. So I thought I was doing a pretty good job of hiding it from her. When I decided really that I wanted to go to treatment, though, I just said, I need to go to treatment. And neither one of us really knew what to do. I just so happened to have two coworkers that had parents go to treatment at Turning Point of Tampa. And they just so happened to be the two people that I asked, hey, do you know of a treatment center around? So I told my mom about it, and she called, and a week later I was in treatment. Now,
That's amazing.
So when I got to treatment, for the part of me being in treatment, how did my family support me? So when I was in treatment, I had a therapist that told my mom, point blank, you need to get some support for yourself. And she suggested a 12-step family support group for her. My mom will tell you that the first thing she did when she went to this meeting was she went there expecting them to tell her how to keep me sober. And that's not what happened. And she still attends that program and is very involved. So that's kind of the story of how things unfolded for me in treatment with family support, and then now. So I've been in recovery for 15 years, and so has my mom.
That's incredible. And I think I really appreciate you speaking to the need for the family to address their stuff as well, because
Absolutely.
So often in our world, everything gets focused on the addict, which, by the way, tends to be one of the first things the families complain about, is that it's all about them all the time. So, I think this is an amazing opportunity for us to say, right, and we have support for you as well, and we have help for you as well. And that's really powerful. That's amazing. Okay, so you've mentioned your employer, Turning Point of Tampa, and you've told us that that's where you went to treatment, which is fantastic. Now, what an amazing story to say to go from being in treatment to being employed at the treatment facility. Fill in the gaps. How did that happen?
Oh, wow. So when I got out of treatment, I moved back home. I am from Lakeland, Florida, which is about an hour outside of Tampa. And I got involved in some nonprofit work and was still kind of connected to Turning Point through some alumni programming. But, I lived an hour away, and I really wasn't interested in doing any kind of traveling for work. So funny story that when I got married, I ended up moving to Tampa, and I had a job in Lakeland that I loved, but I didn't want to make the commute from Tampa to Lakeland to work every day. So I decided to start looking for a job in Tampa. And the first place that I looked was at Turning Point. I had a lot of friends that were actually working there at the time. And they just so happened to have a position open in the professional relations department. The person who is the director of the professional relations department actually worked at Turning Point when I was a client, and I remembered her and she remembered me, and we got along pretty great, and I had the experience and the background that she was looking for. So again, the rest is history. I've been working here for 9 years.
And what do you do? What's your role and your title?
My title is Public Relations and Media Strategist. So I do some business development. I work with clinicians in the community, people who potentially are looking for placement in residential treatment for their clients that are suffering with substance use disorder or eating disorders. Turning Point of Tampa treats primary substance use disorder, but also primary eating disorders. And I handle our media, so social media, which I know you're very familiar with, and also our website and advertising and any type of community relations. I attend events on behalf of Turning Point and, get other information that may be beneficial for our clients and our business as well.
Which is where we met at a NATAP event
Yes.
in Orlando in,
Yes.
was it January or February last year, before everything happened, right?
Yes. Right before the pandemic in January. Yes. We
Yeah,
met
yeah,
at an NAATP roundtable in Orlando with other treatment providers. Yeah.
exactly. That was, and I mean, and that was awesome. And Nikki Soda put that on, and she's going to be a guest and down the
Oh,
road
great.
with. Oh yeah, I think the world of her, and she does a great job. So back to you, and to Turning Point of Tampa, and what would you say? Well, so speaking of the pandemic, right? I mean, we met, and then it was. I mean, I just remember it being really funny. I was like really excited to come down and see your place and do the traditional thing, and da da da, and then wham,
Yep.
everything went to a screeching halt, and so you and I have become Zoom buddies, and
Yeah.
and but how has the pandemic affected your business, and not so much your business, but again, the Chronic Hope podcast is really designed to help families that are struggling with addiction and teach them how to get help. How has this affected people trying to get to treatment and the families trying to get someone to treatment? And what have you guys done to work with that?
I think for the recovery community in general, a lot of things changed right up front. And, keep in mind, we're a treatment center. So we provide treatment and clinical support, but then we also have an underlying philosophy of 12-step programs. So we have our clients get involved in the 12-step community. And we're very lucky here in Tampa Bay. There is a very robust recovery community, a lot of 12-step support meetings that clients can attend traditionally. But with the onset of the pandemic, we have had to change the way that we do some things. We have had to go virtual, just like, the rest of the world. And, I think in the beginning, I was afraid that maybe people would use the pandemic as an excuse. I think that people entering treatment, there's a very small window of time when they are willing to go to treatment. Sometimes you kind of have to get it when they're ready. If they say, I want to get some help today, you kind of have to strike while the iron is hot. And I was concerned that that would be one more excuse for people to use. Oh, there's a pandemic going on. It's too crazy out there right now. I don't feel safe. I don't want to go to treatment with other people that I don't know. But I think the exact opposite has happened. I think that we as mental health professionals and the treatment community have done a really good job of saying, like, here's what we're doing to help you adjust in this, pandemic within a pandemic. Because I believe that addiction, has been a raging epidemic, maybe even at pandemic levels for many years. And we find ourselves in this other pandemic at the same time. So I think the messaging has been really good for us to say, here's what we're doing. Here are the precautions that we're taking. This is how we're changing our programs. And I think people have felt comfortable continuing to reach out for help. If anything,
That's awesome.
I think there's an increase in people asking for help, which is an amazing side effect of this pandemic. If there's any, light at the end of the tunnel or a bright spot in the pandemic, I think that's been it. I think that there has been an increased number of people reaching out for help, not only just for treatment, but also in seeking help, period. Whether that's through outpatient treatment, whether that's through outpatient therapy, or families seeking help from a program like the Chronic Hope Institute.
Yeah. Well, yeah, thank you. And I think it's, it's important for people like in my position, right? The clinicians that are dealing with the families and with the individuals, to be able to keep that connection with you guys, the treatment facilities that have, kept their doors open and made the precautions, because, let's be honest, addiction doesn't go away. Addiction doesn't care, And like you said, if anything, it's gotten worse. Things have gotten worse. The overdoses are worse. And so the need for facilities like you guys and what you guys do is become even more important. And so that's fantastic.
If I could say something too, just about my own personal experience with, being in recovery and having to, make some changes in my own personal recovery. So right when the pandemic started, I actually moved, and I have done like a back and forth thing. So I grew up in Lakeland, and then I moved to Tampa when I got married. But I've always wanted to move back to Lakeland. I just love Lakeland. That's where my heart is. I finally convinced my husband to move back there. So we picked up and moved our entire life back to Lakeland. Now it's only an hour away, but when you're talking about a recovery support program, and I've been going to these support meetings for, the past 14 years. And that's kind of where my people are, in the Tampa Bay area. And I picked up and moved, and it was like my whole support system changed. I still can talk to people on the phone, but it's still not the same as seeing someone in person. And then the pandemic happening at the same time was like, well, I don't even have the option to see people because all the meetings were closed down and everything was being done on Zoom. And I'm not really a huge fan of video personally. I never have been. My in-laws live out of state, and it's always a challenge to speak to them over, Skype or something like that. I just am not a fan of video. It just doesn't feel very personal to me. But, I had to adapt because I had to still take care of myself. And I also started going to therapy during the pandemic and have been forced to have to do it virtually.
Huh?
Yeah.
Fantastic. I mean, yeah. and good for you for A, sharing that, and B, stepping up. And that's awesome. That's amazing. Yeah. And good for your employer, Turning Point, for adapting to the situation and providing the necessary things for people that need help and for sticking it out. This has been a challenging time for everybody, and especially people in our business and people that are struggling with addiction and codependency and the family disease, and to have a place like Turning Point available and to weather the storm like you guys have done, to me is just so amazing. And,
yes.
and I'm grateful.
I appreciate that. And, I will say the same thing too for the Chronic Hope Institute and the family case management that y'all do. When you think about the pandemic, I made this comparison the other day. Whenever you get into recovery, you hear these statements like, oh, share where you're at and share the things that you're going through, because inevitably you're going to meet someone who's been through something similar. So they can share their experience with you. Well, no one has been through a pandemic of this magnitude. So there was no one to ask, how do we do this? So we just kind of all had to reach out to each other and lean on each other and figure out what to do. Turning Point was able to pivot really quickly. It felt like I snapped my fingers and we had all of our intensive outpatient programs online. And I'm sure that you had to do the same thing as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I moved to Florida 2 years ago from Colorado and still keep my license in Colorado and my license here. And I do a lot of work around the country. So I was already adjusted to that. But for the 5 or 6 people that work with me in the Chronic Hope Institute, going full video was a total shock to them. But fortunately, I had already had the entire system set up and ready to roll. And I was like, here we go. It's really simple and easy. And it was awesome. Yeah. I have another question for you.
Yeah.
And I got interviewed last week on a big radio station out of St. Louis, which was really fun. And the guy asked me a really interesting question. He said, "Hey, Kevin," he goes, "You're in recovery. You and I are both in the 12-step recovery world." And he's like, "What do you say to people that say that the 12-step recovery model doesn't work and that the percentages don't fly and it seems like every year there's another article about how horrible the 12-step stuff is and how it doesn't work." And so I'm curious what your thoughts are on that and what your response is.
I think my response is the same thing that it's always been. I am in an anonymous 12-step support group, and I know hundreds, probably thousands of people who attend very similar 12-step support groups and have been sober for decades. And, there's really very various ranges of sobriety and clean time in 12-step support groups. But my question has kind of always been, where do these people get this information when they say that 12-step, it's questionable, does it really work? How many people really stay sober? Because it's an anonymous program. But I think it's important to keep in mind that 12-step programs are not treatment. They are support groups. So it is me and you sitting in a room and somebody comes in and they're asking for help, and all I can do is give my experience, strength, and hope on how I stayed sober today. I'm not a clinician sitting in a room waiting for you to come in to tell you what to do clinically. I'm not providing you any clinical services as a person in 12-step recovery. I'm just there to tell you how I did it. And, maybe you'll be able to do the same thing, and maybe you'll take a different approach. There are a lot of paths to recovery out there. I don't think that any one path owns the patent on recovery. We're kind of all going for the same goal. But I mean, it's my experience that 12-step recovery programs work, and they work for millions of people. My favorite thing about 12-step is that it can apply. It's not just something that's in the United States, it's all around the world. I was at a conference one time and heard some information about one of the 12-step programs in another country, and there are like 22,000 meetings in this country.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So this is not something that just got brewed up, and it definitely got brewed up in the United States, but it reaches all corners of the globe. So I think if everyone is accessing it and looking to it for help, then must work.
And let's remember, we're not just talking about 12-step recovery for people that struggle with drugs and alcohol. Like you mentioned earlier about your mom and myself. I go to the addiction and alcohol stuff, but I also go to, family 12-step recovery groups, and
Right.
And I have found them to be dramatically helpful with me and my lifestyle. I mean, just completely amazing and incredible. I think that's available for everybody as well too. And I appreciate your answer. And that's kind of basically what I said, the same thing. And I was like, well, here's the thing. The analogy I think I drew was, how in the first couple of months of the year, everybody joins a gym and then they don't go, and then they tell everybody that the gym sucks and it doesn't work, and it's like, well, but how do you know that? You're not going. I mean, if you want to change, if you want to go to the gym and get the results, you got to go on a regular basis. You got to make that commitment. It's the same thing with anything else, with therapy, with, losing weight, with 12-step recovery, whatever. You got to make a commitment. And by all means, there's other alternatives. There is non-12-step recovery groups. There are faith-based recovery groups. There are therapeutic recovery groups. In Denver, they have Buddhist recovery groups. And I'm like, yes, I vote yes,
Right.
And that's how we do it. And that's fantastic. Okay.
Right.
Last question.
Okay.
What is your passion? What is it that gets you up out of bed every morning to go to work? And what just really gets you excited about your job and your recovery?
Oh gosh, I think honestly, lately I've been really well. I've always been a very opinionated person.
Really?
I'm sure you can attest to that. My husband and all the people close to me can attest to that too. I think a lot of what I kind of perceive as injustices almost in the services, the access to services for people that are seeking recovery from addiction, mental health, eating disorders. So that's kind of led me down the road of some public policy and advocacy work. I don't think everybody has the same access to treatment that I had. And I think that healthcare is a human right, and I think that addiction treatment is a human right. Um, I know a lot of people who have been through a lot of different types of treatment. Some people that have gone to treatment at private facilities that accept private insurance, and then places that are federally funded or maybe get some funds from the state or the county where they are. And some people just don't have access, period. So there are some things that can be done within, the halls of Congress to address some of the things, some of the disparities. And there are actually some things happening. There are some bills that are being considered right now, and some stuff that's going to go through legislation. So that's really what I'm passionate about right now. And I mean, I shouldn't even say right now. It's been going on for a while, several years.
And in the 12-step lingo, we would call that service work. Is that you're committing your time and effort and energy into helping people get access by changing the system and allowing more people access, which is one of the foundational belief systems of the 12-step world. Is that, congratulations, you're sober and you've got your life back together, you're married, you got a great job, and now it's time to give back, and now it's time to make sure the next person has an opportunity.
Absolutely.
And that's one of the things I find so admirable about you and so amazing about you is that's your commitment. And you shared that with me last week, and I was just so like, oh my gosh, that's wonderful. And I want in. I think that's fantastic.
Right. I appreciate that, Kevin. And I did want to say one last thing about you and about the Chronic Hope Institute. There are so many types of treatment out there for the person seeking recovery, but you don't hear a whole lot about help for families. And I think that families just maybe jump on the internet and try to figure it out on their own. But you are an amazing resource. I've actually turned several families onto you. I know that some of them have contacted you, so I'm glad to hear that. But that's what you do at the Chronic Hope Institute, is really kind of direct that family on what to do, before, during, and after treatment, because it's not just about the person that's seeking recovery. We need everybody to be well.
Thank you for saying that. I really appreciate that. And I mean, it's true. It's true is that the families need help just as much as the individual. And so to be able to coordinate with a group like yours and a company like yours is great. Give us the pitch. Give us the pitch on Turning Point and how we connect with you and how we contact you, and then we'll call it a day.
Okay. So Turning Point has been here in the Tampa Bay area since 1987. Again, like I mentioned, we do primary substance use disorder treatment and primary eating disorder treatment. We offer residential, day treatment, and intensive outpatient services. If you want more information on our programs, you can go to our website, which is tpoftampa.com. We also have pretty much all the social media, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter. We also have a YouTube channel, and we have a podcast, which is called the Point is Recovery Podcast. You can find that pretty much on any platform where you listen to podcasts. I'm one of the hosts. We also have another host. His name is Chris Masudi, and he works with me in the professional relations department. Turning Point is family owned, and we've been owned by the same family since inception, and we've been in the same location for about 25 years now. This is our 34th year that we've been serving the Tampa Bay community.
That is incredible. Hey, and is there just to say it out loud, is there an 800 number?
There is. It is 1-800-397-3006.
Fantastic. Oh, Ashley, thank you so much. You've made welcome. My day. Thank you. And tell Chris I'm sorry. Next time we'll do the two of you. So, hey, folks, thanks for watching today. Thanks for watching the Chronic Hope Podcast. Remember, you can subscribe to the Chronic Hope Podcast on YouTube channel and on the Apple Podcast channel. And you can join our Facebook group. We're going to be doing an Ask Me Anything on May 7th. And we'll be doing some case management with the family in May as well. I'm trying to run down the list of things we got cooking. There's so much going on. We're on Instagram. We're on Twitter. We're on Facebook. We have a Facebook group. Oh my gosh! Oh, look at that guy with that crazy yellow shirt, or orange shirt. By the way, I'm clinically colorblind. Oh, I've been getting interviewed a lot on the radio too, and I'll be on tomorrow night actually on the Jim Bohannon show at 11 p.m. Eastern time, and it's on a syndicated show. You can find it on the radio, and you can buy my book, Chronic Hope: Families in Addiction, on Amazon. It's also available on Audible, and it's also available on Kindle. And I also wrote the book, Chronic Hope: Parenting the Addicted Child, and that's available as well. So, hey, Ashley, thanks again. Oh my gosh, this was great.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
And one last thing that Ashley and I share in common is that a love for the smash-faced dogs. And
yes.
Yeah, your boxers I find are so adorable, and you probably heard my Bostons in the background as we got started. But
yeah, that's just another gift of recovery, Kevin.
That's right. You are absolutely right. That's the truth. All right, folks. Thanks. We will see you next month, episode 17. And have a safe day. Have a safe week, and talk to you soon.